Hey everybody, it's GobletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we're going to be playing another Premier draft of Khans of Tarkir, so without further ado, let's get into the draft. And our pack 1 is insane, which is a little unfortunate because there's so many different cards that I want to take here. We've got Abzan Charm, which is probably the strongest of the charms, being excellent cheap removal for gigantic creatures with that exile ability. But it's also card draw with the second ability. It's also a combat trick with the third ability that leaves a permanent buff on the board. So this card is super flexible and super powerful. The only issue with taking it pack 1, pick 1 is it immediately locks us into Abzan. So it's hard for it to end up in our deck if we get pushed into any other clan. There's also a Mardu Rough Rider that's fine, a Jeskai Elder that's really solid because it's flexible being a mono-colored card. The Horde Chief is one of the best commons in the format. 2/3 is a great body against 2/2 morphs and it spits out a 1/1 when you attack. But we've also got a pretty sweet rare that can end up into any blue deck, so it's a lot more flexible than that Abzan Charm, and still very powerful. If you have a creature with power 4 or greater on the board, this can completely flip the course of a game, tapping all your opponent's blockers and locking them down for another turn. Even if you don't have a creature with power 4 or greater, just casting this during your opponent's end step will often immediately win you the game in the next combat. So Icy Blast is a huge finisher that doesn't lock us into any specific 3-color pair yet, so we'll roll with that. For pick 2, we've got a really great piece of mana fixing. All these triomes are super high picks, because this is going to help us in Mardu, red, white, black, Jeskai, red, white, blue, Abzan, white, black, green, and so on. So we could take that. We could also take the Avalanche Tusker, which is solid. It's pretty fun. You force your opponent's best creature to block it, but they can always double block with something else and kill your Tusker on the first attack, which isn't insane. And there's like a Weapon Master, which is pretty decent. Go with our Icy Blast in that potential trio, but I'll just go for the Nomad Outpost here. We'll take that excellent mana fixing pretty highly. For pack 1, pick number 3. Got some decent mana fixing here. Thornwood Falls. You pretty much always want to take the enemy colored dual lands over the allied colored dual lands. If you don't know your enemy and allied colors, you can look at the back of the Magic card, that 5-color little star. The colors that are right next to each other are the allied colors, like red, green, and green, white. But green and blue are enemy colors. They're at the opposite side of the color wheel, and green and black are enemy colors. So the enemy colors match up into like 3 different clans, but the allied colors are only in one of them. So Thornwood Falls if we want to take more fixing here. Or we just take like a Watcher the Roost for a nice evasive threat. That's about it. Thornwood Falls, Watcher. Yeah, Snowhorn Rider would be fine. Let's take... You know what? I'm just going to take duels unless I see something really solid. Let's stay real open here for now and get some great fixing. So these are both allied colored mana fixing cards, so I'm not going to take them super highly. We do see a Debilitating Injury. Looks pretty bad. There's been removal spells like Deadweight, a 1-mana enchantment that gives -2/-2, printed in recent draft formats that just hasn't been that exciting. This plays even better than that, even though it's a worse card just because of how this format plays out, how the stat lines are, where it's all 2-mana 2/1s, 3-mana 2/2s, sometimes there's even 4-mana cards with 2 toughness. This can just kill a lot of things and punch above its mana cost, where you're clearing out their 3-mana morph play with your 2-mana removal spell. So I think Debilitating Injury is actually a premium removal spell in this format, and we'll take it accordingly, potentially heading towards Sultai here maybe, green, blue, black. If I had to pick right now what we were going to be in, I would pick Sultai because we have one really good blue card and one really good black card, and the only clan, the only 3-color pair that ties these two together is Sultai and green, blue, black, but we'll see. A pick 5 Mardu Horde Chief is a pretty massive reason to try to push towards white instead. Of course, the 2/3 body already being good, but also getting that raid trigger to get the wide board state is absurd. Already spoke up about that card earlier. It is incredible. Let's take the Mardu Horde Chief here over the Scoured Barrens, which is another enemy-colored dual land. Pick number 6, we've got a Kill Shot or a fine but narrow removal spell in white following up the Horde Chief. Got a Parapet, which is a filler defensive card for your Abzan decks, your white, green, black decks. Yeah, not a super good pack. There's no mana fixing left to just default back down to that. guess I'll just take the kill shot. I don't want to immediately, like, take a card that's only going to go into Abzan, and it's going to be pretty filler in that color, so I'll just take another white card to go with the Horde Chief. So we could theoretically be Jeskai or Abzan right now, and then we'd only have to cut one card either way. If we go white, blue, red, we cut Debilitating Injury. If we go white, black, green, we cut Icy Blast. Pack 1, pick 7 now. Good chunk of filler here. We could take a big, expensive removal spell if we want. 6 mana is a lot, but it's about the quality removal you're going to come by. Part of why Debilitating Injury is actually pretty good. Even though it does not kill a massive amount of things, it's pretty cheap at least. Yeah. Rite of the Serpent, maybe even just Dragon's Eye Savants, but I'll take the Rite of the Serpent there. Pick 8 now. More filler stuff. Ponyback Brigade's actually the best card here, I think. There's a very impressive deck that is all about getting a really wide board state and casting cards like Trumpet Blast to give all your creatures +2/+0. Or there's a 4 mana spell that gives all your creatures +2/+1. So having a bunch of cards like Ponyback Brigade that are 4 creatures off of 1 spell can actually play really well. So I think Ponyback Brigade has the highest potential upside out of that pack. And now we'll take a kill shot over a bunch of filler creatures and banners that just aren't great. All right, yeah, pick 10 Mardu, Warshrieker, or Take Up Arms. Even a Freet Weapon Master is a great morph card. Flipping up a First Striker can kill basically anything, and you can also maybe get some extra damage in. Feel like Mardu, Ponyback Brigade, Go Wide is a good spot to be here, where we take the Warshrieker, the Take Up Arms, though. I'm actually going to take the Warshrieker. Big fan of this card. Spits out a Morph the turn that you raid with it, or it spits out a 3-drop like a Mardu Horde Chief. So, yeah, Mardu, Go Wide, aggro, I think is the way we're trying to push here. Leaping Master, Rush of Battle, or Firehoof Cavalry seem fine. I'll take the Leaping Master. We really want to make sure we have enough 1 and 2 mana creatures to trigger raid cards like Mardu Horde Chief, even really filler ones like Valley Dasher that might have to chump attack at some point. Whereas that Rush of Battle, the +2/+1 to everybody, I'm not going to take that nearly as highly as good like 2 mana creatures, because there's much less decks that are interested in that card than are interested in just like some decent, efficient creature. So like Trumpet Blasts, we should be able to get super late every time. For pack 2, pick 1, we have a white-black dual land. So if we stick to Mardu, white-black-red, this still helps in white-black. And if we go Abzan, obviously it helps even more. There's also Suspension Field, actually, which is really good removal. For 2 mana, you're clearing out your opponent's biggest creature, something with toughness 3 or greater. It's exiled until they blow up your Suspension Field. Yeah, that's actually... This is good enough to take over the dual land for sure. Let's grab a Suspension Field here. Card seems sick. For pack 2, pick number 2, there's a High Spire Mantis, an Einok Bondkin, a Kill Shot, a Weapon Master, bunch of fine cards. I think I take the Bondkin. Really want those good 2-drop creatures to be scooped up pretty highly here, so we can be consistently triggering raid on Mardu Horde Chief and Mardu Warshrieker. Take that over High Spire Mantis, I think. Also more likely to get scooped up quicker since it's a mono-colored card instead of a 2-colored card, so more decks can use it. For pick 3, we have the best combat trick in the format, one of the best commons in the format, Feat of Resistance. For 2 mana, you can win a combat against almost any creature and eat their creature in the trade. You can also use this to completely counter your opponent's removal spell while getting a permanent buff on your creature. It's just very flexible and very powerful, and I'll take that over the second best card, which is Ruthless Ripper. Really nice, just cheap little Death Toucher that you could also morph out as a bigger creature if you want. Or if you want like Surprise Death Touch, that's another way to use it. So Feat of Resistance. Pack 2, pick 4 Chief of the Edge for just black, white, warrior, aggro. +1/+0 to all your other creatures is nice. And a 2 mana 3/2 is well above the rate you usually get in this format. That is a high power, low mana value creature. We'll take that Chief of the Edge towards our Mardu aggro deck. Passing up on an Arrow Storm, that would be nice, but not as good as the Chief of the Edge. And then some really slow removal spells like Throttle and Rite of the Serpent, which are probably getting cut now. We're aggressive enough to probably not want 6 mana removal that badly, so Chief of the Edge it is. Pick 5, Scoured Barrens it up. Ride Down's okay. It is pretty narrow, just blowing up a blocking creature, but because it gives your creature trample, you're getting in for all the damage you would have gotten, even if you killed their creature pre-combat, so that's kind of nice. I think I'd rather just have a Scoured Barrens, though. But Ride Down, even though it's narrow, is probably better than Kill Shot in this deck. We're trying to be aggressive, so we'd much rather Ride Down something than Kill Shot something. But our mana fixing isn't great right now. We have one Nomad Outpost, and that's it. So I'm going to take Scoured Barrens pretty highly. Pick 6, take another Mardu War Shrieker. Yep, I'm going to be super happy about that one. Scoop it up. Pick number 7. Bunch of poopy stuff. 5 mana 2/2 flyer that slowly gets bigger. 4 mana 3/3 sometimes gets first strike. We'll draw a spell that shoots yourself in the face. I'll just take the Krumar, I guess. Don't really think I'm going to be a mega like active treason deck here today. Cavalry's fine at triggering your cheap raid cards. And Trumpet Blast is fine if we can get a really wide board state, but we currently only have the one Ponyback Brigade. I did pass up on a Take Up Arms for another War Shrieker to go for just more general aggro. Let's take the Firehoof Cavalry here over the Trumpet Blast. Pick number 9. Don't think I'll be playing any of these cards in the end. I guess I'll just take the highest rarity card, the Mardu Blazebringer, but this card's pretty dang bad. Where it attacks or blocks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. It says it's a Mardu card, but it actually just plays the best sitting on the defensive, and you just never block with it till it would be a trade anyway, right? Block their 5/4 or something with this later in the game. So it's way more of a defensive card than an aggressive card, which is pretty weird. Yeah, none of these are going to make the cut. I'll just rare draft the highest rarity card. Again, now we'll take a Sidisi's Pet for the only on-color card. It's a 3-drop Morph creature, so it can make it into the deck. If nothing else, it's something to dump onto the board alongside a War Shrieker. Probably don't want a main deck active treason. I don't think we're quite that aggressive. I think these 3 are the first cards we want to cut if we find enough playables. Active Treason. You know what? Probably Active Treason and Ride of the Serpent, and then we start cutting kill shots after that. Alright, pack 3, pick 1, and we get a premium 2-drop creature. Seeker of the Way is an excellent prowess card. 2 mana 2/2, but if you cast a non-creature spell during your turn, all of a sudden it's going to be attacking as a 3/3 lifelink. So if you Debilitating Injury or Suspension Field one of their blockers, you're jamming in for 3 and gaining 3 that turn, which is incredible. With Feat of Resistance, it's going to turn into a 4/4 lifelinker protection from whatever color. Seeker of the Way is just very, very good for its mana cost. That's definitely the pick. And speaking of cards that are great for their mana cost, time for an Utter End, just excellent removal that can exile whatever we need it to, any non-land permanent. So if our opponent slams down a Sarkhan or a Sorin, some terrifying planeswalker that you don't see too often, well, we can exile that as well. So Utter End here over primarily the Mardu Skull Hunter or more mana fixing. Those would be the next best picks, but Utter End is looking awesome. Pack 3, pick 3, we now gain access to the 4 mana 4/5. We have to attack to not lose life when we cast it, but that's something we're going to be doing every turn, so this should be great for its mana cost. It's also got that warrior creature type to go with our Chief of the Edge, which should be great. So Saddlebrute's the best card for us here. Next best is probably like Ruthless Ripper and the Bondkin. Again, I don't think this is an excellent kill shot deck, and we didn't actually go for the full super wide Trumpet Blast deck either, so Saddlebrute pretty easily. Ooh, Chief of the Scale? Double up our warrior friends? Don't mind if I do. Pick 4. Yeah, this is certainly better than 5 and 6 mana removal, and better than fight style removal that can get blanked by your opponent's bounce spells or removal spells. Or combat tricks. There's a lot that can go wrong when you spend mana on a fight spell, especially when they get this expensive. When you have to spend 4 mana to have your creature fight an opposing creature, just so much easier for your opponent to have 1 or 2 mana up to have a bounce spell or something to really ruin it. So pretty happy to take the Chief of the Scale. Pack 3, pick 5. empty pack. I guess I just take Defiant Strike because it's cute with Seeker of the Way, but I don't think we're playing it just because of that. Ooh, pack 3, pick 6. There's an excellent little raid enabler. The Monastery Swift Spear. 1 mana, 1/2 haste prowess, just gets in for damage early. As soon as they play a morph, they still have to consider the fact that if you play any instant, then you just eat their morph without losing your creature, right? Your 2/3 beats their 2/2 if they don't have the mana to flip it up. So it can even sometimes like declare attacks just to get a raid trigger, and sometimes your opponent won't block because they're just scared of the prowess. So Monastery Swift Spear's stat line just lines up really well, and I'm very happy to have one of those. For pick 7 now, no fixing. Rakshasa's Secret if we want to rip cards out of our opponent's hand, I guess, but I think we're much more playing to the board in this kind of deck, but even then, what do we have? A 3/1 prowess, a 4/4 that just kamikazes itself no matter what. Just take the 3/1 prowess, I guess. Maybe that was a pack for the mind rot, the making our opponent discard 2 kind of thing, but I think we're just entirely playing to the board and pushing in damage with this deck. Another very empty pack. I'll just take... Honestly, I'm going to cut whatever I take, so we'll rare draft an uncommon. Pick number 9. Again, probably cutting whatever we take. Take an Inoc Tracker or Sidisi's Pet here. Maybe we want another Morph card. Take a Swift Kick that I will not be playing, but I'm not playing a Siegecraft either. You know what, for collection purposes, let's hold that Alt key, see how much we own of everything. Alright, I don't own a playset of this uncommon yet, so I'll take the uncommon. I am not going to run a Swift Kick. Do not think that card is great. And I guess there's a slight chance we play Trumpet Blast, and I don't have a full playset yet anyway, so take that. And now Bondkin could actually get played. Flipping into a 5/3 is a lot of damage, plus it's a warrior, which could be relevant with our different chiefs. So Bondkin is definitely a better morph in this deck than like the Inoc Tracker. So there's other cards we would cut before we cut that. So that might actually make it in, which could be pretty cool. Alright, we're probably red, white, splash, black in the end. I imagine. We have another Valley Dasher if we need it. Ideally, we don't. Alright, so let's sort things out by the actual mana costs here. Let's drop the morphs down to 3, because that's when we can dump them out if we need to, which clumps up our 3 mana spot a lot, so we can cut out the incredibly bad Mardu Blazebringer, or incredibly filler at the very least. Attacking 1 time and just dying is like 3 mana sorcery, deal 4 to your opponent. That is atrociously bad. So you need some kind of crazy synergy with this card, or you need to be a really defensive deck that's just like okay to block their 4/4 with this thing later in the game. But even then it just sits there not blocking anything until they play something big enough to trade. Yeah, no, I think Blazebringer is just the worst card in this pile. By a lot, card's pretty egregious. So 1 mana creatures, Monastery Swift Spear is just a pretty great stat line for the cost, but Firehoof Cavalry is the kind of card that's really just in there to trigger raid. So it's the kind of card I would run highly only in decks that have a lot of 2 mana raid cards. So if you're black-white at the core and you have a bunch of the 2 mana 2/1 that makes your opponent discard a card if you attacked, then I would really make sure to have a good 1-drop count and go all in on that raid ability getting a lot of value. But we have no 2 mana raid cards in this deck, so I just don't think Firehoof Cavalry is necessary. I also think we have enough 2 mana creatures to go ahead and cut the Valley Dashers. They're very similar to the Cavalries, where they have some big issues with the text on the card, where they're gonna have to trump attack later in the game, which is quite bad, so you need to be getting a lot of value out of those first couple attacks that you manage to get in before your opponent establishes a big blocker for them. And the best way to get that value is to have a deck that is just full of raid cards, where you really want to make sure you've been getting all these attacks in, and a deck that is full of combat tricks to make sure that when they do block, you can make it at least a decent trade, if not profitable. So I think with just the 1 feat of resistance and maybe like 1 Defiant Strike coming in on the sideboard, that's just not enough combat tricks to go with the Valley Dasher in a deck that really only has like 2 raid cards. Well, no, we've got War Shriekers as well, but we've only got the 1 3-mana raid card, and we have plenty of other 2 and 3-mana creatures to have on the board by the time we're getting to our 4-mana raid cards like War Shriekers and Saddle Brutes. So I think these 3 are the worst creatures we have. What creature count does that put us at? 16? So we probably ideally don't really want to cut more creatures, but we certainly have more filler. Like Sidisi's Pet, kind of just a 3-mana 2/2 in this deck, because we're trying to be aggressive, we're trying to get damage in, we're just not going to flip that up pretty much ever. So it's just a generic 3-mana 2/2 that we can always cast, whatever's going on with our mana. That is our next weakest creature, followed by probably Bloodfire Expert. We don't have a million efficient ways to trigger Prowess, so 1 toughness on the 3-mana card is real bad if we can't trigger it. So these are other creatures we could probably cut. And then the next weakest goes to like Bondkin, Inoc Tracker, and Krumar are all pretty equivalently filler, but I think those are all a bit better than Bloodfire Expert or Sidisi's Pet. So these are options, some flex spots to pull stuff out of the side if we need. And then for the non-creature spells, the Active Treason, the Double Kill Shot, the Rite of the Serpent, these are the most narrow of our spells. Rite of the Serpent just takes a ton of mana for a more aggressively slanted deck. Kill Shot's kind of awkward removal for a more aggressive deck. We would like to be able to kill their blockers and then attack in, and obviously Kill Shot can't do anything until our opponent's at the point where they're on the aggressive. So not only does this not help us get damage in by clearing out a blocker, it's also just not castable at all until incredibly late in the game sometimes, because our deck's trying to be on the aggressive often enough that our opponents probably aren't going to be attacking us until they are convinced that they are in the lead, and at that point, Kill Shot might not even be that helpful. So, Kill Shot's awkward. Active Treason's incredibly narrow, where it's a super bad card if it's not finding lethal that turn. Like, this card is either terrible 70% of the time, or just kills your opponent 30% of the time, so it's a big gamble. It's a big gamble, because it basically does nothing, or it does everything. Where it stops your opponent's blocker and kills them with it, or you're on the defensive and this card doesn't help you functionally in any way at all, or you're at parity and you can't quite find lethal and it just doesn't do enough and you still just lose, and it would have been better if it was a creature. It's awkward and narrow for sure. So yeah, these are all the flex spots, so let's see if we have anything to swap out in the flex spots here. Ideally, if we cut any creatures, we put more creatures in. Being at 16 right now, I think we want to keep that count pretty high for this relatively aggressive deck. We could swap Bloodfire Expert and Sidisi's Pet. We could swap those out for the Valley Dashers, but I already spoke my piece on why those are a little awkward. The Firehoof Cavalry, already spoke on why that's a bit awkward. War Behemoth is probably just a better morph to have in this deck than Sidisi's Pet, so we can do that 1-for-1 swap pretty easily. Because Sidisi's Pet, again, is basically just a 3-mana 2/2. At least with this, it's a 3-mana 2/2 that we will actively get some value from flipping up later. With Sidisi's Pet, we don't get any value from flipping this up unless our opponent has like 2 1s or 3 1s on board. Otherwise, we might as well just keep a 2/2. And just not flip it up. So I think War Behemoth is probably just better than Sidisi's Pet. So we'll make that 1-for-1 swap. We might just keep the Bloodfire Expert in. If we do that, that would mean we have 3 prowess cards in the deck between the Seeker of the Way, the Monastery Swift Spear, and the Bloodfire Expert. So that could convince us to put in a kind of filler like Defiant Strike, because it always cycles itself away worst case scenario. But with the prowess creature on the board, it is +2/+1 draw a card, which is pretty reasonable for that cost. So yeah, I could see we keep the Bloodfire Expert and we cut like let's go all in. I'm gonna gamble on Active Treasons here. It's probably not smart, it's probably not the good play, but I'd like to just cut like Double Kill Shot here and throw in a Defiant Strike. And then we have Active Treason and Rite of the Serpent as narrow kind of finishers, like kill their last creature to get in for damage, or steal their last creature to get in for damage. Again, it's probably not quite the best build of this deck. At least the Active Treason probably needs to get swapped, and Rite because it's 6 mana, but just don't think there's anything great to swap to. But I mean, I could see swap these two for double Valley Dasher being the thing, but I'm going to run with this version of the deck. Get that Defiant Strike in there to go with our prowess cards. And this looks perfectly solid. We've got some real filler like Rite of the Serpent, Act of Treason, some filler morph cards like Bondkin, War Behemoth. But we've also got some really high quality mixed in there as well, with Utter End, Debilitating Injury, Suspension Field for excellent removal spells, some really solid creatures like Chief of the Edge and Chief of the Scale, Seeker of the Way, Feat of Resistance for a super good combat trick. Yeah, there's a mixture in this deck for sure. Let's see how that mana base is looking for us. That might be another reason to cut Rite of the Serpent. It's our only double black card, and black does look like the least represented color. Actually, wrong on that. Black and red are equal, so 11, 9, 8. So a good chunk of white sources and then pretty even on red or black. We can go less black sources than red sources because we don't need black till later. So with red, we have a playable 1 mana and 2 mana red spell. With black, I guess there's 2 black 2-drops. Well, 3 if you count the injury, but we don't need to cast that till turn 3 or later, so I count this as kind of like a 3-drop. But yeah, that's equal. For 2 mana or less, there's 2 red spells, 2 black spells. At 3 mana, there's 1 black spell, 2 black morphs, but that doesn't matter because they're morphs, so we don't flip them up till later. And then there's 1 red spell here, really? Yeah, 1 red spell, 1 black spell, because Act of Treason also late game finisher at like the 6-drop slot. Yeah, black and red are actually looking very, very even. There is 1 more black spell than red spells, but in terms of where they show up on the mana curve, there's 2 of each at 2 mana or less. There's 1 of each at 3 mana, and then there's like a good chunk of each at 4+. So I'm just going to go for an even split on black-red and just make sure that white is more than those. So right now we have 5, 6, 7 white sources, 5, 6, 7 black, 5, 6 red. So let's add a white source, cut a black, go 8, 6, 6. Seems correct to me. White is definitely the most important here. I guess not by like a super massive margin. I still think I'd rather go 8, 6, 6 than 7, 7, 6. Yeah, we'll go 8, 6, 6. White in the lead, black and red right behind. And we'll call it a deck here. Here's a look at our final deck list for today. We're on a Mardu aggro deck with some really, really nice raid triggers, some pretty solid removal to clear a path, and just decent aggro stuff all around. So we've got some good aggressive creatures starting at 1 mana with Monastery Swiftspear, but hitting some pretty premium 2-drops with Einok Bondkin, Seeker of the Way, both of the Chiefs, the one that gives +1/+0 to our warriors and the one that gives +0/+1. So really nice when we have other warriors on the board. And the big raid triggers in the deck are the Mardu Horde Chief to spit out 2 creatures off the 1 spell, both of which are warriors, and double War Shrieker, which is really nice in a deck that has a good chunk of 3 mana creatures, as well as morph creatures that we can dump out with that raid trigger. So that can really make sure we're just making a super wide board state super quick and trying to jam in for a ton of damage early, especially when we have so many premium removal spells to clear a path for those creatures to get in, with Utter End and Suspension Field to clear out their big creatures, a debilitating injury against our opponent's morphs, a feat of resistance if they find a good block, we can try to win that combat there, and if we get to a really high mana cost, we've got Rite of the Serpents to clear out a large blocker, or Act of Treason to steal their biggest blocker, and hopefully find lethal the turn we cast it. So a really nice looking Mardu aggro deck today. Without further ado, let's head into the gameplay and see how it does. Here we are for game 1 with the namesake of the deck in hand. We got the co-CEOs themselves, Chief of the Edge and Chief of the Scale. Ready to roll out with a turn 3 Horde Chief as well to get that wide board state, which is super gross with these abilities to buff them up. Could be real nice if our opponent doesn't have some efficient removal like a debilitating debilitating injury of their own to clear out our Chief of the Edge here. I might want to start with Chief of the Scale, since it's a little sturdier against removal, more likely to be able to attack in on turn 3. Because also if our opponent plays like a 2-mana 2/1, I won't want to attack him with the Chief of the Edge, so I'm going to start with the Chief of the Scale so that I know I can trigger my raid next turn without losing a creature. Because otherwise, if I drop Chief of the Edge and they drop a 2-mana 2/1, then I'm not going to want to attack in there. Oh no! How is that my luck? It was so much more likely that I get destroyed by playing Chief of the Edge first than Chief of the Scale first, but they have the one card that specifically clears out 3 toughness creatures, but not 2 toughness creatures. Alright. Again, I think I played that out right, in theory, where if they have any 2-mana 2/1 creature, or if they have a debilitating injury for -2/-2, it's just better to play the 2/3 first. They just happen to have like the one guard that makes that worse, and this is not the kind of draw we want to see here. I don't love not getting the buff on my other creatures anymore, but trading into a 2/3 Flying Vigilance I think is a perfectly reasonable use of the Chief of the Edge. I think we still have to just jam in with the whole team. Hit for 5, trade the Chief of the Edge off. Or they could eat my 2/1 and gain a bunch of life if they want. Or gain a bunch of life, take a bunch of damage. It's the opposite. I'm living in an opposite world in my brain. Oh boy. Well, thus ends our aggro. We've cast our 3 spells this game, opponent. What are you going to do about it? I mean, currently they don't even need to do anything else. They're already stable. Mardu Horde Chief, no attack trigger. Outlast the Nightblade, fair enough. Alright. Outlast the Nightblade again. There's a Sultai Flayer. Our opponent is looking extremely stable at this point. Probably do have to just cycle this, finding something. I should have used this on our opponent's creature since I'm not attacking this turn anyway. That way if they had instant speed removal, they couldn't like kill our creature in response to counter our card draw. Can start poking them for 2 damage a turn again. That's a potential 6-turn clock. But they've still got more spells. Now all of their creatures with counters on them have First Strike and Death Touch, which is really gross. First Strike, Death Touch means they win any combat at all, basically. Well, we've got our plan. If they don't have some instant speed removal like a kill shot or something here. Just keep poking them with the Leaping Master. Once they do get a flyer, hopefully we can steal the flyer and kill them with it. With this act of treason. The land clump after the opener certainly has not done any favors for us here because we lost a lot of tempo not being able to get any extra damage in, any extra pressure going there. But doesn't look completely over. We have hit a couple more spells now to try to get something going. Yeah, jam in for 5. You got it. Probably got some kind of raid trigger. I mean, they do need to start hitting us to outrace the Leaping Master as well. Outlast the Bonkin. Outlast the Bonkin it is. Now they have 2 different First Strike Death Touchers. Very nice combination of abilities there. War Shrieker is a creature to dump onto the board, I suppose. We are really just like fingers crossed that they slam down like a big flyer. There's not a lot in Abzan. They could have the 3/3 flyer, but we wouldn't lethal them if they had that. I'm gonna keep this land in hand in case they have the thing that makes me discard one card. I guess if they have the thing that makes me discard two, I'll still be sad, but we'll see. Yeah, I think the most likely thing, if they have a flyer, is going to be the 3/3 flyer with Delve. I would be super happy if it was like the uncommon flyer that's like a million mana. It's like a 5/4 or something. Because that would get really close to lethal, if that's what it was. Alright. Bondkin is a creature. Definitely something for us. Leaping Master MVP right now. No game plan at this point without it. Oh, that's rough. Yeah, maybe if I sandbagged more lands, we could have been fine around that here. And we'll definitely, we didn't need all this mana. That's really rough. That was our best bet here. Because even if they don't resolve a flyer, if they keep hitting me with Nightblade, I'm getting to a wide enough board state now that an act of treason to take one of their blockers and add to my amount of attackers is getting really close to lethal. Yeah, like imagine they attack with Nightblade here, they don't play another creature, we steal the Sultai Flayer, they have 2 blockers up, so they kill the Sultai Flayer in a 3/3, but they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. If they couldn't play another creature, it would be lethal like now. So we die to become immense for +6/+6, but again, with what I've been saying about the wide board state, I think I need to try to keep it wide to potentially crack back with everybody instead of just trying to get 3 more Leaping Master hits in, because that could lead to a victory in just 1 or 2 turns instead of 3. Sure ain't lethal on board right now, but Saddle Brute's a spicy draw. And thanks to that, I think I can outlast the Bondkin and still feel pretty confident about my blocks here. Throw a 1/1 on the Nightblade, send in the Leaping Master. Yeah. We're at the point now where a single +1/+1 counter kills me, so I'm gonna block at this point. We can still die to the +3/+3 trample combat trick, but even if I block with basically my whole board, I'll die to that trick. Dang it. There's the Rite of the Serpents. That is not good for me. Unless I top deck my own Rite of the Serpent, that would be great. Oh, that's a bomb and a half. Herald of Anafenza. They get a +1/+1 counter and a 1/1 every single turn, which is devastating. So now, First Strike Death Touch means we have to chump We have no attacks here because they have first strike death touch as well. 4 blockers, 3 blockers against this board. Still alive. I don't know if we have anything at this point that can get us there. I don't think we do. So, I mean, 2 main things that could have went different this game. There was only one thing I really think that we had control over, and that was if we really played around the Rakshas's secret, I do think that Act of Treason could have found us lethal on one of these turns. If we had kept double land in hand instead of just one. With the way the draws lined up, that was the only thing I think we could have done, really. Obviously, the other thing that could have gone different is just the draws lining up a lot better. We lost a ton of tempo early, hitting like 5 lands in a row. But can't control that aspect, so we'll just make sure to hold lands a lot more passively later in the game. In the future, because we don't have any card draw in this deck, so it's not like we're going to need more than 6 lands on board if we don't have any spells in hand anyway. Guess I could try to outlast the Bondkin 2 more times to be able to trade into the Nightblade, but if it's tapped 2 more turns, they just can go wide and kill me by then. And then, yeah, even if that trade's there, they have this whole other board to kill me with, including all these 1/1s. Too little, too late. So first strike death touch means it doesn't matter how big our creatures are and how big theirs are, so we kill the smaller one because it's spitting out more creatures. Although I guess if I get rid of the Nightblade, I get rid of the death touch. I mean, whichever one I get rid of, they still have well more than enough stuff to kill me. Alright. We're moving on to game number 2. Here we are for game number 2 on the draw. So, is this another draw step to try to find the black source? If we don't, we're kind of dead in the water, but if we draw a land in the first 3 turns, we have 2 morphs no matter what. And as soon as we hit the black source, this hand becomes insane, even if we just start on turn 3 and play the Chiefs later. So I'm going to keep this one on the draw. Now we have an Einok Bondkin, so we get to get started on turn 2. We just play Bondkin, then we play some Morphs turn 3 and turn 4, again, even if we don't find the black source, and if we do, we'll do even better things. Mirror match here, playing against black-white so far. There's their own Morph. Don't know if I want to trade Bondkin into a Morph. But I would rather play my own Morph creature here than give it a +1/+1 counter right now. So let's slam down that tracker. I mean, trading Bondkin into a Morph wouldn't be terrible against most Morphs. Alright, that ends up being like a Pony Back Brigade or something. That would be really bad for me if they flip it later. Okay, well, they don't have the mana up to flip up a Morph that will eat a 2/2, so I'll just put my Morph onto their Morph. They could have, like, Sidisi's Pet here. Ooh, it's a Horde Ambusher. Cute. Okay, well, I'll trade 2/2 for 2/2 still. We're very far away from flipping this tracker. They've got an Ankle Shanker later in the game as well, so we need to kill as many of their creatures as possible. I guess they just wanted to cycle that Defiant Strike. I was going to say, that was a little weird. Uh-oh, another red source. Not ideal. Yeah, because all of their creatures are going to be first strike death touch on attacks as soon as they find the red source. I think we're pretty aggressively trading off here. So like I attack in to see if we can trade into this morph. We cannot. And then we just drop our own morph, and if they attack in, we'll declare the block. We really need that black source. They really need that red source. Things are not going swell for anybody right now. Wow. They're probably thinking the same thing, finding their 5th white or black source before their first red. We find our 5th white or red before our first black. I don't think anybody's super happy right now. But this turn we can now suspension field the Kieran and buff the Bondkin, and then we can start getting pretty good attacks in with that. Next turn onward, which should be nice. Do think we still could definitely use the 5th land out here. No, the red source. Oh boy. I probably should have attacked, because yeah, if they hit the red source for the ankle shanker, I just don't have reasonable blocks anyway. I should have got 2 more damage in there while I could. Well, Feat of Resistance is actually really cool here. Send in the Bondkin, block the ankle shanker, and cast Feat of Resistance. Give it protection from red, white, or black. And we'll kill the ankle shanker without losing our morph, because it's got protection. The first strike doesn't matter, because their creatures have first strike too. Yeah, it was a pony back brigade. Probably should have more aggressively attacked and offered trades into that as well. Alright, cool. Ooh, that's a really good draw against this board state. Slam in and just cast the Horde Chief. They can't kill either of these on blocks, and then I have a 2/3 to block their 2/2 and a 1/1 to block one of the 1/1s. Like, even if they're on the Trumpet Blast game plan, they deal like 6 damage to me here, giving everybody +2/+0. Starting to feel jealous, opponent. They found their red source, we still have not found that black. And they had 2 red cards they needed it for. We had 3 black cards, so we were a little more greedy for sure. Especially because one of the red cards they needed it for was a morph. You can go for it. Do your Feat of Resistance. Ride down, that's fine too. Hey, alright, we are golden now. Kind of interested in just flipping our pony back brigade. Exactly enough mana to do that, and now we're also holding up an utter end if something really weird happens, like they drop Zurgo, the 7/2 haste indestructible creature. I'm like, exile that. That would also be a flavor win. Oh wait, no, it's a flavor fail. Zurgo's the one ending somebody, not getting ended. They're down to 4 right now. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, they took all 6. No blocks. There's a 1/5. Okay, no attacks. They got to play it defensively. Let's flip that pony back. And they have 5 blockers against our 6 attackers. Just want to play a Chief of the Edge and go to town. I don't hate it. They will get to eat 1 or 2 of our creatures for free. Yeah, because they could go like chomp, chomp, and then they could be like eat a 1/1, eat a 1/1, take. When it's not. I'm pretty sure it's not lethal, but. Yeah, because these aren't warriors, so it's definitely not lethal, but I think it's worth the all attack. With the Chief of the Edge down. Yeah, just put a 1/1 on the 2/1. Put a 2/2 on a 1/1. 1/5 on the 4/3, that makes more sense. Or that. That works too. Yeah, cool. Math is for blockers. I didn't do all that math yet. They're down to 3, and now it's 2 creatures on their board to 5 on ours, which that is the magic number. 3 more creatures than they have, although they did just gain a life. But our smallest creature is a 1/1. Our second smallest creature is 3 power, so this is still lethal. I could utter end pre-combat to make it slightly more likely to kill them. But it's already lethal on board, so I kind of like just threatening that lethal on board and then going for like War Shriek or Chief of the Scale post-combat if I somehow don't kill them. Or I could War Shriek or utter end post-combat. A lot of stuff we could do there. Alright, things were a little sketchy there, definitely a little bit of a greedy keep, really hoping for that black source, but we had plenty to do until we found it, and once we did, really got that game firmly in the lead for us. And we are now 1-1 heading into game 3. Here we are for game 3. No white source for the Bondkin is awkward. Active Treason and Rite of the Serpent are also really awkward in an opening hand. Not castable for a very long time. I think I have to mulligan this one. There's that Active Treason again, looking pretty terrible. Maybe we should just cut Active Treason and Rite of the Serpent for just more creatures. Because they are showing up at some inopportune times. Yeah, just keep all the lands here. I'm gonna ditch an Active Treason. Keep all the mana, and I can go turn 3 Morph, turn 4 War Shrieker. Hopefully draw something that I play after I slam the War Shrieker down. Draw anything that costs 3 or less, and War Shrieker can do it. I'm going to cycle this immediately. I've got a 3-drop, a 4-drop. Probably not. Well, so far so bad. All land draws for now. Come on, Arena, give me anything that costs 3 or less, please. Okay. Not a bad one. Do that if they block, and if they don't, we'll War Shrieker. Which is kind of awkward. That means War Shrieker's not the greatest here. Because it's not actually casting a thing. Unless I just draw a card. See if I hit a 2-drop red creature. Full gamble it up? Nah. Send the Leaping Master into the sky to poke me for 2. We're down to 16. There's a Monastery Swiftspear off the top. If I do that, I can't flip up the Ponyback Brigade, though. I kind of want to flip up the Ponyback Brigade. I should have played my land pre-combat so I could attack both here and flip up the Ponyback if they did something. That was very loose. Kind of instinctually was just like, yeah, we go to combat, then we post-combat play the land because I have the feat, but I don't want to defeat the resistance here. Alright, we missed out on 2 points of damage, which is pretty bad. You don't want to just do that for no reason. I gotta say, holding on to this Defiant Strike is looking decent. Because we drew into a Prowess creature to go with it, which is pretty gross. What is this going to be at instant speed? Red, black, white. It's like +2 +0 to everybody, but like, I don't know what they could have to like up toughness. I mean, whatever. If they've got like tricks to save these, we've got. We're just losing 1/1s. Oh, it's just a good raid card, the Heart Piercer. That was a pretty good combat for us. Ponyback Brigade put in some real work there. Okay, now we do some just filthy prowess nonsense here. Filthy prowess nonsense time. Let's go. Whee! Play that land for that Rite of the Serpent to get cast next turn. They don't have any way to trigger raid for the thing that makes me discard 1 card. No! Hard cast Ponyback Brigade. Yeesh. Well, this is weird, but we do this. They can kill the Swift Spear for 2 of their 1/1s. Or they can kill the War Shrieker for all 3. They're going to kill the War Shrieker for all 3. Okay. They're down to 7 and it's a top deck war. Well, that looks okay for now, but it might be like double kill shot. Burn away. Choose the Swift Spear. Let 2/2/2 get in. I'm not going to play around a Rakshas's Secret from a Mardu deck. No, a 2/3 to block my 2/2. Rude. I will play around the thing that makes me discard 1 card, because they've already shown me that they have that one, the Skull Hunter. Stop with the gas. No! We're very good at losing top deck wars. I really don't think a 3-color deck like this should be at lower than 17 lands, though. This will be 2 games that it's just destroyed us here. Can't trigger that Mardu Horde Chief. They'll just cast it. We still have to just cast it. Krumar Bondkin from our opponent. Unyielding Krumar. We are just in the board stall of board stalls now. If I send in the Krumar... Man, come on. Well, we're dead. I was gonna say, if we send in the Krumar, they can just block with like a 5/3, a 2/3, and a 1/1, and I only kill the 5/3, so it still doesn't attack, get through the board stall at all. Well, lost the top deck war is what it is. We are 1-2 now, heading into game 4. Here we are now for game 4. And we were just thinking about cutting a land because of some of the flood we were getting into these big board stalls, and now I kind of want to add another black source. Play 18 lands. This is our second hand that's been like this. Second or third, I think. We've had some issues with the colors. Oh, doesn't start till turn 3. Doesn't start on turn 3 unless I hit a land, but it's got really great removal and a combat trick. I'm going to gamble on this one at this point. That could be a good draw if we find the black source. I'm gambling on this hand less because it's the right thing to do, and more because it's like, well, if we hit the black source, we're in a really good position, and if we don't hit the black source, then at least I get to go play another draft now, because this one is just not, it's just not my day on this one, it looks like. But we hit that black source, so maybe we can start turning things around here. Probably want to hold up the Feat of Resistance when we go to combat in case some nonsense happens from our opponent. No nonsense, so we drop the Chief of the Edge here. I am not really worried about casting a debilitating injury on a Highland game yet. I might if they hold it up as a blocker and I just want to get damage in, but I guess we've got Feat of Resistance for that. Yeah, we can send in holding up the Feat of Resistance here. Get a permanent buff on whatever gets in, and if they don't block, that's really fine as well. We can just slam the War Shrieker down, and we probably should use that mana discount to get the injury out of the way, get that Highland game off the board. Still have the suspension field for a bigger creature from our opponent and the Feat of Resistance if they go for any blocks. So get mana efficient, take that tempo swing to push in for a lot of damage here. Ooh, yeah, and it's going great. And they're green-blue, and the only board wipe in green-blue is the Morph card. that costs 6 mana to flip. It returns all tapped creatures to their owner's hand, so don't think we're really scared about overextending. We're just sending in the beef, sending in the team. We've got the 5 mana to flip the pony back already. So I can just go to combat here. They're down to 1 pass turn. Okay. Flip the brigade, and there's the concession from our opponent before the ability even goes on the stack, so Arena gets confused and weird about it, and that one was just great luck there. We had an opening hand that would have been awesome if it had a black source in it, so I gambled on just drawing the black source. We hit it, and the opening hand played out really well, so we are 2-2 now, heading into game number 5. Very solid mana curve this time around. We're obviously still looking for that black source with this hand, but it's a really good way to start the first few turns on the play. Oh my god, and now there's a War Shrieker for turn 4? We hit another Morph creature, or just anything that costs 3 or less. This curve is insane. 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop, and a 3 drop alongside it, potentially. There's the black source, which makes this even better. Come on, top deck. 3 mana or less creature, and this should be near unbeatable as a start. If they have like Arc Lightning, that'd be really good for them. 1 damage to our Bondkin and 2 to the Swift Spear, with their 3 damage divided as they choose. Just a Morph. Dang, did not hit the 3 drop. I could, I guess, outlast the Bondkin so I can get attacks into 2/2s without fear of dying. That seems pretty reasonable. Yeah, this War Behemoth's not the craziest Morph ever. If it trades Morph for Morph, that's fine. I don't think I want to bluff the Swift Spear in, though, because if they take me on that bluff and they go for the Swift Spear block, I'm going to be really sad. Yeah, so just the Morph here, then we drop the War Shrieker and outlast the Bondkin. Alright, just 2 damage it is. That feels pretty nice. Even if we don't hit another spell there, just having that extra way to use our mana, just buffing the Bondkin felt decent. Ponyback Brigade's a good one. Let's play the 5th land pre-combat so I could flip up the War Behemoth if need be. But then we'll just slam down a Morph post-combat, most likely. Winter Flame. Tap a creature, deal 2 to another one. Yeah, I have nothing to save the Bondkin here, so you got it. Sadness. Send in that 2/2. Alright, well, there's the flip. Nom. What did we eat? Oh, we ate a 6/7 Woolly Loxodon. That feels good. Avalanche Tusker. Force me to make a bad block into that. Could clear it out. Or just drop a 4/5 after attacking. Well, I guess I can't attack if I don't clear out, yeah. Never mind. We just cleared out. I attack in and I lose something if I don't just kill it immediately, so... There we go. Land 6 would actually be awesome here, just hard casting the Ponyback Brigade at this point. Face down card. That could be Blue's board wipe, return all tapped creatures to hand. Guess we could play around that a little bit. They're at 6 here, but they can't just block the Swift Spear and let 6 damage in, so I'm going to attack all. They need a bounce spell or something to be able to block kill Swift Spear. Alright, the Morph is a bounce spell. That's a great one to have here. We still knock them down to 3, and now we make a really wide board state, so it's super hard for them to have enough blockers. to survive. They need at least 3 blockers. Well, not if they gain a life. Now they just need 2 blockers. And they only have 2 blockers. So they can go 3-2 on the 3-3, 2-2 on the 2-2, and go to 1 life. Yeah, that's the play. We send in then for sure. There aren't really a lot of like 1 mana combat tricks in this format. It's all 2 mana plus. 3-6 or a 4-5. 3-6 or a 4-5. Let's just play the 4-5. It's just bigger power. It's only 1 less toughness. I feel like it's probably a little better. It's less mana efficient, but the War Behemoth can be morphed for 3 mana on a future turn, so if I like top deck another 3 mana play, I can play this in a 3-drop, but I can't do that with Saddle Brute. So in a way, it's kind of more mana efficient on a future turn? Question mark. Could be. Snowhorn Rider, 2 mana up. Looks pretty dead to me. And they are pretty dead. We have pulled our way back up to 3-2, at least a 50-50 run out of this draft, no matter what happens, but hopefully we can win at least 1 or 2 more rounds, get back to breaking even on gems. So 3-2 as we head into round number 6. Here we are for game 6 with some beautiful mana. Still big underperformer to Active Treason and that Serpent thing. I just kind of groan every time I see them. I'm like, I don't really want that here. Chief of the Edge, that I do want. Against black, let's start with the Chief of the Scale. It's going to be exactly the same amount of damage either way, and the Chief of the Scale can survive the debilitating injury -2/-2 spell. Chief of the Edge can't until Chief of the Scale is on the board. So yeah, either way, we'll have both out on turn 3, and they'll both be 3/3s at that point. Cool. So here we go. Just a couple 3/3 CEOs hanging out. Best friends. Playing against the full Sultai. Let's get our land out pre-combat in case of weirdness. We can utter end, but I think we can jam in for 6 here. And then probably drop the Bloodfire Expert. Ice Feather Aven. Ooh, fancy. Block the Chief of the Edge, bounce the Chief of the Scale so they can trade with that one. I could utter end the Ice Feather Aven so I still have the Chief of the Edge, but I would still deal 0 this turn and the Chief would be bounced. The Chief of the Scale, that is. That is super rude. Super, super rude. I think I just accept this trade because I can recast Chief of the Scale and play a Bondkin with it. And then I just keep clearing out whatever they play and then Active Treason get the kill later. Yeah, I think we accept the trade here. It's annoying, but I think it's best to just roll these right back onto the board and start slamming in with this stuff. Clearing away. Come on, land. Come on, land. Bloodfire Expert plus Suspension Field this turn. Let's go. 17 lands. Actually perfect. Get this out of my way. Thank you. Archer's Parapet, that's pretty annoying. Kintree Invocation. Also pretty annoying. I guess I could utter end the 5/5. Could also Active Treason it. If If I utter end the 5/5, I still have a Rite of the Serpent as soon as I hit land 6. If I active treason, I can active treason and buff up the Bondkin in the same turn. But then they'll still have the 5/5 for later. Feels fine to just utter end here. Poke for 4. Another Sultai Soothsayer. More 2-for-1 value. That is not great for us. But at least we've still got a solid board state for hitting for damage right now. Oh, land 6. I'm so desperate. I'm so desperate for your aid in this trying time. Active treason means hitting for 6, putting them to 4. Just not quite there yet. Alpine Grizzly. It's a big one to active treason. We have found land 6. But now I'm just flipping up the Morph, which I won't have the mana up to do if I outlast in the same turn, so I probably hold on to land 6 for now in case I get Rakshasas secreted so I can keep one of these 2 spells. And then if I don't, I just play land 6 in one of these next turn anyway. Yeah, because it's 5 to flip, so we just pass and we flip in their end step. Then next turn we get to start trying to push in for damage. Face down card. Cool. Here's my face up card. I imagine this Morph is going to be a stronger card than their 4/2, but it could be the one Morph that flips up and gives hexproof, in which case trying to tap out for a Rite of the Serpent would be horrible. That's only one Morph in the set, though. Three blockers. Block, block, block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on board. Don't have it. Don't be that one exact Morph card. It is not. It is just a big, like, 6/7, which is what I imagined it was most likely. I guess there's 2 that flip up with hexproof. There's a rare one, but that's like 6 mana to flip up, I think. I was thinking about the uncommon flyer that you flip up and you give something hexproof till end of turn. Oh. Boy. If I ever kill that, they get 7 1/1s. If I active treason it, they block it, and my 2/3 power creatures take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, go to 3 life. They go to 3 life, and my board state's big enough to just kill them next turn, I think. Yeah. Think we can get this going here. They're down to 3 with 2 blockers up. If they play a single other blocker, they're alive, or Jungle Hollow, they're alive with that as well. But if I draw into basically anything, they're dead. Wait, they attack? They have like an instant speed way to sack the Hydra here or something? They still have removal? Oh, untap the Hydra. That's pretty gross. They are down to 1, but now I'm dead. We just find lands. Alright. They just found a little more gas than us in the end. And that is all it... Whoa! They don't attack for lethal. We're still in the game to draw some more lands before we concede. Hey! I guess they wanted to play around a trick from us. That is not any good right now. Even if I didn't block and went to 2, that wouldn't be good. I'd have 3 creatures. I could kill their Highland Game to attack with 3 and poke them for 1, but they'd gain 2 because the Highland Game dies. I mean, I guess I don't even know. Just doesn't do anything right now, basically. I don't even think I cast it. Go to 7. Please tell me that's a green card. Oh no, it's a green card! Feat of Resistance is so stupid! Oh. Alright, we had no business winning that game, but it was a fair... No, it was a fair line from our opponent not trying to crack in for lethal, because we had 2 cards in hand. If one of them was a kill shot or something, then we might have killed them on the crackback if they tried to attack us for that 11, but they had lethal on board. We had 2 lands in hand, and we got to stick around a few turns from there, see if we could draw like an absolute champion, and we did. The feat of resistance against all green creatures has got to be a pretty tilting ending to that game from our opponent. And we are 4-2 now, heading into round number 7. Alright, here we are for game 7. If we live in Magical Christmas Land, we could draw a 2-mana creature and slam this Horde Chief down on turn 3, but even playing our Morph for our Bloodfire Expert into a Horde Chief turn 4 should be a decent start to the game. We're definitely keeping the hand with really good mana going with that Nomad Outpost. Alright, we didn't hit a 2-drop creature, so we'll have to start things on turn 3, but turn 3 on the play. Still kind of quick for this format. No! Your turn too late, little Bondkin. My friend. Although I guess now if we need to Feat of Resistance, we can use that and Bondkin in the same turn. Yeah, we might need to do that. Let's see. Yeah, then I go Bondkin Feat of Resistance and just cast the Krumar Bondkin next turn. That's not bad at all. Come to think of it. It doesn't matter what color I choose, unless they can reveal. This is one where they reveal something, so I guess I choose red or white in case it is one of those. So let's go red. But yeah, we're just going to be a 3 toughness against a 2-power creature is the goal there. Alright, now we're just going to hard cast a 5/3 next turn, I guess. Eye Sentinels. That is a really gross magic card that I don't want to deal with. But I can deal with it by just sending in the squad, I guess. I mean, giving this first strike is pretty exciting. I could give this first strike and still play the Horde Chief this turn. I still think playing a 5/3 is probably better. was gonna say, not in a million years do they block this. The first striker that just eats their creature. When their creature is a bomb rare like this, puts counters on the rest of the board and buffs itself while it does it. I mean, it could put the counters on itself as well, but might as well get the counters elsewhere because you can get the double buff that way. Okay. Yeah, we're still sending in. Probably have like a kill shot here. Maybe they've got their own feat resistance. Be pretty solid. Okay. Yep. But that's going to be like pretty much their whole turn here. They didn't play a creature since they're doing this. That's fine. Do I want to cash in a bunch of damage here? No, because I need the other white source to also buff up the Bondkin. So I'd rather buff up the Bondkin, I think, than cast the Defiant Strike here. Play around the 2/1 that makes me discard a card if they're Mardu, if they're red, white, black. No, they're Jeskai. I mean, I guess they could be a combination. They could have a little blue splash and a little black splash. I'm just gonna dump the land out, though. That way, if I hit a 6-drop next turn and a land by casting Defiant Strike, drawing another land, and having a 6-drop, I can cast both spells. Okay. This being a 4/5 is not ideal. And they still have 3 mana up. They are down to 12, that's something. So I only really get to get the expert in for now, though. War Shrieker, buff the Bondkin again. Now, thanks to Defiant Strike, I can attack with both these 4-power first strikers, if they don't have the mana up to put a counter on another creature at instant speed. I suppose they could like outlast this to get a counter onto it, but then it's tapped. So that's less blockers, which is pretty important right now. They're at 8 life facing 5 creatures. Yeah, so they're just going to hold the mana up to put a counter on the Falcon at instant speed. That makes the high Sentinels, what, 6 toughness? I've got a wide enough board state, though, that we just jam with everybody, slam a Saddle Brute down post-combat, try to just declare an attack with our whole field twice in a row to win this game. Okay, so they're going to put a +1/+1 counter on the Falconer so that they can eat the War Shrieker. I think I let them do that, so they tap out of a bunch of mana here to eat the War Shrieker. Oh, they're not gonna... Oh, no. Well, that's bad, because that means they're holding up a trick in case I try to kill them with a Defiant Strike. I mean, we still try to... It's still exact lethal, so I'm still going to try it, but I imagine them choosing not to put a counter on Falconer means they're not going to die. Because otherwise you just put a counter on Falconer to kill the War Shrieker. Oh, they are going to die. Okay, never mind. I guess they just waited for first strike damage first. They didn't have to put the counter on until after first strike damage. That's fair enough. All right. I was scared. I was scared. But it still works out in the end. Still find that Defiant Strike lethal. And we are now 5-2, solidly in the money out of this draft no matter what. Grabbing 1,600 gems and 4 packs out of the 1,500 gem event. Feels pretty nice. Here we are for game number 8. We got our 2 worst cards in hand. Let's go, baby. Act of Treason, Rite of the Serpent. What is the opposite of an MVP? biggest underperformers, but I want a snappier, funner name for them than that. Well, I'm just going to play the Chief of the Edge and hope it doesn't die. Because it presents a lot more damage than the Bondkin. Aww. Morph. Well, no attacks then. We drop the War Behemoth. Just gonna hold 4 mana up here. Interesting. Seeker of the Way is a warrior, which is very cool. I wish I had double white. That would have been awesome. Seeker plus Bondkin here. Seeker is definitely the better play than Bondkin at this point, though. I'll send in the Morph. They don't have the 5 mana to flip it into a 2/3 or anything, so trade for trade's fine. If they try to cast something from hand, we might be able to utter end 2 for 1 them. Okay, we took out a 4/4 lifelinker. Let's go. I guess they just don't have the green source and don't know when they'll hit it. So that is a fair trade for them as well. Drop that Seeker. Well, there's the green source. That's got to feel pretty awkward for our opponent. I would be sad. Six mana up, but we can just utter end whatever they play. This is just active trees and lethal already, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's see. Oh, that's a really good feat of resistance there. Well, we take a trade then. Wow, yeah, that was an incredible feat of resistance. These are both really solid creatures, so whichever trade is fine. Because this is permanently a 5/3, so... like, we're trading for a solid creature as well. Yeah. Let's make sure we still crack for some damage here. Get them down to 12. Still 2 removal spells in hand, so we're good. Just didn't get to let Active Treason be an actual MVP just one time, maybe. Armament Core. Alright, well. They've got the double white up for another feat of resistance here. But my other options are to play one spell, play a single 2-drop creature, or morph my pony back. I'm going to go to combat and see if Arena holds for them. I'm going to get a little cheaty face about it. Arena is not holding for them. So we utter end. Hit for 7. Listen, you gotta be a little cheaty face Arena player sometimes when you're in the mythic queues. It doesn't feel good, but opponents can use that same information against you. Unless you play in full control the whole time, which I'm not going to do. Alright, we are 6-2 now. Potentially turning this into a full-on 7-win run, which could be incredible, but no matter what, we're hitting some sweet value now. Let's see if we can't get into some more greatness, another trophy run here, as we head into the final boss, the final game of Magic for today, win or lose. Here we are on the play for the final battle of this draft, with a pretty unkeepable hand, mono-colored, it's only black mana, which means nothing in the hand is castable. We really need a red and a white source with this hand. Yeah, we're going to have to mold a 6 to start things off. No. It's the delinquent duo back at it again. Rite of the Serpent and Active Treason, the 2 cards we really don't want in the opener. Alongside a combat trick with no creatures, that's a mold of 5. This is the biggest, like, shooting ourselves in the foot here, has been the Active Treason Rite of the Serpent. But I made my bed when I when I built this deck and will lie in it. I think while they may not have costed us any games by drawing into them, they have costed us some games maybe by having to mulligan some nasty hands with them. Okay, can't cast this Chief of the Scale without drawing a white or a black source, but if I draw either, then I can. I think I'd do this Dream Team 3 team. Although I have to get rid of 2 cards because I had them all twice here. Uh-oh. Well, and I guess goodbye, Chief, and I don't even know how we're trying to turn this game around. I guess we need to get really lucky and find some 2-for-1s, like maybe randomly flip this up into a first striker and win a combat, kill a creature for free off of it. We need to find some really lucky lines like that. At this point, down 2 cards on the play, which is kind of like just being down 3 cards, since we're not on the draw here. We need every one of our cards to just 2-for-1 our opponent, claw us back into the game card advantage wise. Utter end their Morph and still have a suspension field for other cards, or I can just play a 3/3. I don't think I can afford to not try to get my first striker to just eat something. Guess we'll just play the War Shrieker and pass then. Alright, they have to cast a combat trick to kill this. They definitely have a combat trick though if they're attacking with Highland Game as well. So it's the +3/+3 trample, I suppose. With the Utter End in hand for instant speed removal, we could take this for a turn and then hold up an Utter End on their next attack. And that could really blank their combat trick. Which is awkward because that means I don't play this Morph I just drew. We're trying to play around the combat trick. But now they just only attack with the flyer. Gross. It's a Horde Chief. Alright. Opponent's getting 2-for-1s. We're supposed to be the one getting 2-for-1s. If I don't cast anything here, then my opponent is... oh, it would be Feed of Resistance. So they attacked him with Feed Resistance? Against War Shrieker with that? I guess that works. It wouldn't work against a face down though, so attacking in with that with the Highland Game into the face down's a little bold. The War Shrieker though would work, but yeah, if I did this block, then even if they Feed of Resistance, we still trade. Alright. I had them on Awaken the Bear for sure, for the +3/+3 trample, but I guess it was Feat of Resistance, because if it was Awaken the Bear, they would have attacked again with the whole team. And it doesn't matter, we're just down infinite cards, dying to a flyer right now, and now these Morphs are going to start flipping and being way too big. Yep, that's looking pretty dead to me. Flip up one of these, I guess. Seven. Well, that was not a winnable game. Technically not done on board because I can Utter End the Kieran and take 8, but I go to 1 and lose my entire board without them losing basically any creatures. Master of Pearls is a very strong card. We just completely slammed through an entire sealed event because we had a Master of Pearls. This thing was completely disgusting. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that, they didn't even need the Master of Pearls, honestly. It was really the double mulligan that got us a lot, and that's certainly a shooting ourselves in the foot, self-imposed kind of thing. I think this definitely could have been a 7-win run. I think we played it out pretty well. Not a lot we could do gameplay-wise for the most part. Game 1, our very first loss, we could have played around a Rakshas's secret a little harder, and we would have won the game off of an active treason if we did that. That was about the only big enough gameplay error that I think we could have changed the outcome of a game gameplay-wise. But deck building-wise, I mean, I could have always, like, I don't like to do this. I don't know why, it's just not instinctual to me, but I could always, like, swap the deck around in between rounds. And I think I really should have. I think Rite of the Serpent and Active Treason were just consistently horrible in the opening hands, and we were drawing them in the opening hands often enough to need to mulligan a lot. And then also there were just some mana issues, which happens when we only have 2 dual lands. So maybe we could have drafted some more dual lands a little bit more highly over some of the more filler creatures like Unyielding Krumar that didn't end up really doing anything. Or maybe some of the more filler creatures or something like that. Maybe we could have had a little bit better mana to have to mulligan a little less often. And then the other thing is just deck building wise, not even draft wise, just cut these 2 cards, put in, I mean, honestly, Salt Road Patrol Firehoof Cavalry, just because I really don't want the Valley Dashers. I think I'd rather go Salt Road Firehoof Cavalry. I think the deck would just be better, because having those in the opening hand, we wouldn't be that disappointed in, like we were with the Rite and the Active Treason. I think Active Treason might have done something in like one of those games, but for the most part, it wasn't ever looking incredible. Rite of the Serpent was actually pretty decent in a couple games when we made it to 6 mana and we had it in hand, but it was also pretty bad in some others where it was in our opening hand, or there were some games where by the time we had the mana for it, it just wasn't very helpful at that point. So I think those were definitely the worst cards in the deck, the biggest underperformers. And the only things really potentially dragging us down from the chance at a 7-win run here. For the most part, really happy with how I drafted the deck, pretty happy with how I played. We just could have built a slightly better build with the cards we got out of our draft pool. Could have cut the Active Treason, put another creature, something like that. And maybe that's all we needed for the slight difference to get just 1 more win in here and get max prizes. But we started out with 2 losses really early, converted it into a 6-win run, got way more prizes than it looked like we would early on, so still cannot be unhappy with this draft. We are in the money, getting some extra gems to do some more drafts in the future. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video and you're interested in seeing more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.